Hello and welcome to the Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen Center for Thought and Culture online. I'm David DeSerto, Director of Programming here at the Sheen Center. The Sheen Center is an initiative of the Archdiocese of New York to engage, elevate, and evangelize culture through the arts and thoughtful discourse. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by filmmaker Yelena Popovic, whose new film, Man of God, tells the inspirational story of Saint Nektarios of Aegina, one of the most renowned saints in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Before we bring Yelena on screen, let's take a look at the trailer.
We cannot take the risk of him becoming a patriarch. He consorts with harlots on the streets. I know it is hard for you to believe that he can be a Judas, but it's true, Your Holiness.
I'm not even sure about his good heart.
You think that you can come here and pretend to be holy?
I'm starting to think that you're not human.
You seem to be the real deal. No wonder they don't like you.
We will demand Patriarch Sophrony to be removed and place you in his position.
Get out.
I understand why the people of Egypt love you. We had you here for a short time and you've performed miracles.
You're a holy man, Your Grace. I lost my eyesight due to illness when I was very little. There is so much light in your presence.
We feel that you don't exercise enough authority.
A healthy balance between kindness and authority is best.
Where is the evidence of my crime? An accusation that condemns me to a moral death.
If it had been done to me, what has been done to you, I would not go to church anymore.
Holy Man of God, will you please pray for me?
The position of power is like a cancer. It eats at you, slowly.
I wish I would have faith.
Father, why don't you say something?
It's not enough that you are trying to persuade everyone in here to become a priest. Now you're grooming nuns from here too? What are you doing with these women?
Why are you doing this?
Refrain from coming here!
My body may be withering away, but my soul is not.
Welcome, Yelena Popovic.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Elena. So nice to speak with you again. Your film tells a remarkable story. But before we get to Saint Nektarios, let's talk a little bit about your story. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in filmmaking?
Well, I lived in Los Angeles for about 18 years. I studied in Playhouse West, which is a method training for actors, writers, and directors. I worked as an actress, then I started writing my own script, and then I ended up directing my first feature film, LA Superheroes. It was about 10 years ago. It was a shoestring budget movie, but that's where we get experience. It was something that I wrote, directed, and acted in. And it was a little small film done with a 7D camera, lights from IKEA, shot over the weekend. I think we've done a pretty good job of, when I look at it, I'm happy with what I've done in the sense that I was able to bring across what I was trying to do. It was a great experience. And in this life of learning my craft, and I'm really grateful to my teachers from Playhouse, so I can say that everything I've learned about filmmaking was there. I mean, I don't know if people know, but there was a method training. It's similar to Actor Studio. That's where we have people like Elia Kazan came out of that training, people like Sidney Lumet, a lot of fantastic actors, not to mention Brando. So I think that it's a very valuable training that basically teaches us to focus on the truth of the moment, whether you're an actor or a writer or director, and be able to make your work personal and put yourself into the work that you're doing. So therefore, to be able to affect those that are listening or watching your art.
Well, this film certainly deals with truth on many levels, and certainly took a step up in the production value. I mean, this is a big historical, a film, and like myself, I'm sure folks in the Roman Catholic Church may not be as familiar with Saint Nektarios. What was it about his story that made you want to make a film about him, and a film and a story that speaks not just to religious audiences, although it certainly speaks to them, but really the themes that are explored in the film have a very broad appeal to really just humanity?
Yes, it's well, I need to mention this. Obviously, I'm somebody. Faith has played a big part in my life. My relationship with God. It basically kept me alive, kept me going through all the obstacles, all the pain, all the difficulties. And it's something that I've experienced personally. It's not something that I've learned and I'm talking about it right now. It's something that I can share from a personal experience. So as I became part of the church in a more serious manner, meaning going to the mass and partaking of the Eucharist, which happened after I was 25. I read a lot of books of saints, like all of us who join the spiritual life and get into that battle. In the beginning, the beginners get very excited. So I read a lot of books on saints, on holy fathers, and I was very excited. I always enjoyed it because it always gave me strength and courage to continue fighting. But I never thought, to be honest, I never thought that I would make a film about a saint. And I, like many others, didn't know much about Saint Nektarios, even though he's venerated in the Orthodox tradition. It was after my father had passed away in 2011. And I was an immigrant at the time. My papers weren't sorted out yet. I wasn't able to go to his funeral, unfortunately. Father was somebody who was a very righteous man, an honest man. He was a civil engineer who basically didn't want to participate in any unethical dealings, even though he had a good position at the beginning in the company, and he didn't want to compromise. He was a man of his word. He cared about people that worked for him. However, he was a thorn in the side of those around him who wanted to advance in wealth and power and doing some unethical things. And they brought him to the court, brought 6 false witnesses, and got rid of him from that position. He ended up working in a small factory, also as a civil engineer. Those who knew he was one of the greatest, they would still come and ask him to help with certain things that nobody else could resolve. But he worked in the small factory. He was very humble man. He was happy. A lot of people, including my mom, they criticized him because they felt that he could have done much better in this world if he didn't choose that extremely righteous path. However, I always respected him for that. I think he had shaped my character a lot, and I remember him saying, "I can sleep at night, and that's all I care about." So I think after him passing away, and me not seeing him for 10 years, it was obviously a very painful experience, not being able to go to his funeral. I was fortunate at least to go a year later for 1 year of his memorial. And naturally, being there, having him in my mind and my heart constantly, I always do, but especially at that time, because he wasn't in this world anymore. I went to this monastery. I went for mass, and after it was finished, I went into a bookstore and I saw a book about Saint Nektarios. And I've heard about him, but I didn't know much about him. So I said, okay, great, I'm going to buy a book, something to read on the way back to Los Angeles from Belgrade. And probably between my father's life, what he had experienced, between the fact that I've just lost him, and he was, it was something that was very much present in my heart and soul, and my own experience of faith and living by faith, really. When I read a book of Saint Nektarios and his trials and his struggle, it was so personal to me. It was something, it was like the light bulb went on and in my soul. And because of that personal understanding of the story that I truly possess, I thought if I were given a chance, if it's God's will, and if I were given a chance to make the film, I would be able to put myself in the story and try to bring Saint Nektarios to the hearts of men, and hopefully serve as something that can help humanity, because he was a man of a great humility, man who was unjustly prosecuted, and who chose love and forgiveness as instead of other things that nowadays are much quicker choice for most of us. And I felt that I could share an honest story.
When we spoke earlier about your journey in making this film, that first Providential part about going home to your dad's memorial service was just the first piece that fell into place. And you even said there were these miracles along the way, that you really saw that it was providential. Could you talk a little bit about, once you decided to make the film, it was still a sort of a daunting challenge to actually think you could get it done. So you knew you wanted to make it, but now you actually had to make it. Could you just talk one or two examples of things that happened that you maybe saw a little bit of divine providence leading you on this path?
Yes, I will tell you something that I think is quite incredible. Before I left, before I went to Greece in 2015, because when I wrote an outline and the script and rewrote the script, I went to Aegina, at the island where Saint Nektarios is buried. That's where his holy relics are. And I put it on his tomb, first the outline, then the script, then the rewrite of the script. This is 3 years in a row now. And I asked him, if it's God's will, help me to make this happen, because I have this burning desire, but I don't know if this is something that it's in my mind or it's something that it's meant to happen. So I did that, and then I asked from a very holy man. He passed away. His name is Father Ephraim from Arizona, monastery of Saint Anthony the Great. I've asked him for a blessing to make a film about Saint Nektarios. The reason I'm saying this, that was the end of 2015. I've gotten his blessing. The only thing they told me, it's fantastic, just if you can choose whoever is going to play him, it should be a man of faith. I said, okay, that's fair enough. And they said, if it's God's will, it's going to happen. That's how they talk. They don't say much. So when I ended up in Greece, why am I connecting these stories? In these really difficult moments that I've gone through, I used to walk to the church, that's 10 minutes from the house. Every morning I would have to go there. And I prayed, not because I'm such a great person necessarily, but because I really needed to get there to pray for about an hour so I can come home and nobody would see how much pain I was in, so I could continue with the day and I can be useful to others and not bother anybody. In that moment, in that particular church, I've seen a little picture of a I believe it was a Holy Father, one of the fathers. I wonder, who is this? And I don't know why I even looked at this picture, but somehow it grabbed my attention. There were like 3 different small pictures of 3 different men, but this particular one on the left-hand side, it was like, who is this? And I turned it around. It was in Greek. Well, I didn't speak Greek, so I knew nothing. However, it was enough. I had such a feeling about it, I put it in my psalter, in my psalm book. So to fast forward, after doors starting to open little by little and all that, and I received a phone call from the monks from Mount Athos, who had found out that I'm trying to make a film about Saint Nektarios when I was in Greece. And so what happened was, says, could you meet with us? We are doing a screening of a film in Athens. Father Andrianos is going to be there. It's about our elder. We would like to meet with you and maybe see if we can help you. So I went to meet with them, and guess what? When they invited me, like they sent me an invitation in my email, I see that picture of a man that I have in my sound book. This was like 6 months ago I've taken. And I realized this is a man they're making a documentary about. It was their spiritual father who had passed away. So I'm at this point going like, what is this? So when I got there and I saw this, and Father Adrianos told me, listen, we'll do anything to help you. Then they spoke to their elder, and the elder prayed about it, and he said, this film has to happen. So they were the ones that found the initial investors for the film. So if you tell me that this is not a miracle, I don't know what to say, because it wasn't like something that so it's quite amazing. And as these things were taking place, I was a little bit like, okay, I've always I've experienced miracle in my life. I've seen it. I live by faith. But now it's getting to a point where it's becoming a little bit. It's right in your face. It's like. So I was slightly startled by it, to be honest. I was.
Not many, filmmakers get calls from Mount Athos. So that's.
I mean, what is the?
Now, I know in addition to the experience that you had in Greece, you shared with me, and I have to ask this, obviously the Sheen Center is here in New York City, that you have a very fond place in your heart for the Archdiocese of New York, and particularly our beautiful cathedral, St. Patrick's. Could you talk a little bit about your experience here in that magnificent church?
Yes, that's true. And when I came to New York, when I was 19 years old, this is before I got baptized in a Serbian Orthodox church, before that was the beginning sort of my journey. When I was in Italy, I used to go to Catholic church for prayer, in Milan. I remember I would often walk in with all the people that were kneeling. And as I said, God, that was something I always went to my father to ask him for help. And I needed a lot of help, believe me. So when I came to New York, and when I got my apartment on Park Avenue and 34th Street, I don't know why I was drawn to St. Patrick's Cathedral, and I would walk almost every day, and I would go to St. Patty's, and I would sit all the way in the back where the Blessed Mother's statue is. And at the time, I did not know who Holy Virgin Mary is. I was not educated in Christianity. My parents didn't really go to church. I left home not knowing anything about it, apart from knowing there is a Father out there who cared for me. So I was every day. I'm talking about a whole year almost. I don't think there was a day that went by that I didn't go to St. Patrick's Cathedral and pray to Archangel Michael. There was a statue of Archangel Michael on the left of that place in the back, and I was there on my knees, and I felt like I had this very strong connection with him, and I could tell him things, and I could ask him to help me, and I even named my son Michael. To be honest, I at one point I even felt like I was gonna. I didn't hear any words, but you know how when you pray, you can maybe get this information that sort of just falls into your space. That almost like as I was praying to him that I was going to have a son. So I said, well, and in my mind, without talking, I said, well, if this is really true, I would call him Michael. And yes, when I had my son, I called him Michael in honor of Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael, and I bought a statue in St. Patrick's Cathedral in 1995. And I've never gone anywhere till today. That little statue is with me. Wherever I go, and this is so my connection. Yes, it's very strong to St. Patrick's Cathedral.
The great director Orson Welles once said that one of the hardest things to communicate on film is prayer. He says it's almost impossible to do, and so much of your film is so prayerful. There's such a prayerful tone throughout the film. How can you talk a little bit how you sort of face that challenge of trying to communicate and convey someone who really lived almost in a perpetual state of prayer?
Okay, I need to say something, and this is not a reflection on my character. I'm trying to convey that I'm holy in any way or good, because I don't consider myself good. I consider myself in the process of becoming, and I'm still far away from anything that I would, my goal is to get as close to God as possible. But I can tell you that maybe because my life wasn't easy, I prayed all the time. I know what prayer means. I know what it means to be on your knees and asking God for guidance and help, because the life is not easy. And I always went to Him. So I think having that experience personally, I've had such a personal understanding for that. And the actor who played Saint Nektarios is a very devout man who actually had a huge turnaround in his life. He was a complete atheist, and then something had happened a few years ago when he became a believer. And he has a resume that it says on it like my resume before I found Jesus Christ and resume after I found Jesus Christ. It's actually on his resume. And he's somebody who spends a lot of time in the monastery praying, so he also has that aura. So between him having that naturally and me having an understanding of what it means of not having anything and experience that grace, when you have nothing and not knowing what's coming tomorrow, but then you know that I can't put this into words. These are moments you can't really describe, but I understand them. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. So I was able to see, with my DP, I was able to see how this has to look like, and I knew what it felt like, and I was able to portray that very truthfully. This because of this, again, not because I'm good or holy, but because I simply have spent way more. I mean, I cried a lot. I prayed a lot. I know what this is, what this means. So, and the life of Saint Nektarios is a very difficult life. He basically, anytime he had a problem, and you see that in the film, he goes to God for relief and for help, because that's his only source of relief and help, because everything else is so difficult and so dark that this is the place where he gets his strength from. And I know what that means, and that's why I think I was able to a degree to put that on the screen in a way where it was honest. It wasn't caricatured. It wasn't an idea of it.
Yeah, it certainly comes off with that honesty. We're going to have to be wrapping it up, but I just had two more quick questions. One, if you could speak briefly, there's a scene, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a scene towards the end that features a well-known actor, Mickey Rourke. It's a small but a very important moment in the film. Could you just talk very briefly about how Mickey Rourke got involved with the project?
Okay, well, Mickey Rourke was in my mind when I wrote the script for that scene, for the scene of not to give it away, the paralyzed man that he's playing, because for many reasons. One reason is a fantastic actor, who has a depth and is somebody who struggles in life, and the pain shows on his face and the struggle, and he has an incredible honesty. So that was one of the reasons that I thought of him. Another reason was that I know that he has affinity for the films about saints, and that he's actually a very devout believer. Now, a lot of people would maybe don't know this about Mickey Rourke, but he's somebody who, that's what he says, he does rosary 3 times a day. And he says, maybe if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be alive today. So that's another person who understands what that really means, what it means to cling on to God and to fight your demons, to fight your passions. So having that incredible depth, incredible talent, and strength, and having faith, I felt if I could get hold of him, he would relate to the role. And after 6 months of trying to get hold of him, I managed to get him the script. and he right away responded and agreed to do it. So my intuition was right.
Yeah, the scene is brief, but it's very impactful. Last question. The film is made, the journey that you started all those years ago with that Providential trip back to Greece. What do you hope, as a filmmaker and as a filmmaker of faith, what do you hope viewers take away from this film?
I hope it has a healing effect on them. Everybody's different, but I believe that this film is supposed to help us reflect upon ourselves. I feel it has that ability to make us think, to make us look into ourselves, not others, and help those who, especially those who are in doubt, who are suffering, to hold on to their faith, to hold on to their hope, and to show that there is a way out of darkness, of problems out there, no matter how hard life is. So I hope that it helps people ultimately. And if I have a just quick second to say this, I have received an email from a journalist, a secular journalist, not a religious journalist, who had watched my movie and did a review. And she sent me an email after she interviewed me and saying that I want to thank you for making this film. It's a French lady, because I lost my husband a year ago from a cancer. And it was a very difficult thing for me. I don't know how I survived. It was probably because my daughter that I managed to get through the pain. When I went to see your film, I was still having a lot of pain in my heart and in my soul. And thanks to seeing your film, for some reason, I feel lighter and I feel better. And I feel that I need to keep moving on and that I cannot give up on God. So one person has that kind of reaction, for me, that's a success.
Absolutely. Can't think of a better definition of success. And what more could you ask for in a review than that? I want to thank you, Yelena, for spending some time with us. I want to thank you for your honesty and your artistry. Again, the film is Man of God. It'll be in theaters for exclusive Fathom events on March 21st and March 28th.
And
yes.
I'm talking, there is if people go and see the film on March 21st or March 28th, because it's through Fathom events, I do, they asked me to make a 10 to 15 minute added value, something from a backstage, something to, because I guess that's part of their events. And I filmed something that I talk about, incredible miracle that Archangel Michael did during the shooting. So if people will have a chance to see that as well if they go and see the film. And
well,
that's my tribute. And that's my tribute to him, to my favorite saint and protector.
Even more reason to take advantage of these exclusive screenings. Thank you, Yelena. The film is Man of God, wonderful film. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. And if you're interested, I encourage you to visit our website, sheencenter.org, for a listing of all our events, both our live events and upcoming virtual events. And until next time, stay safe, be well, God bless.